Welcome back to Listen Up Podcast at Grace Christian University, where we take deep dives into student lives.
Good morning, Grace. Today we have some announcements for you. StudGov's lip sync battle is going to be rescheduled for next semester, so use this time to perfect your routines and get stoked because it's going to be a memorable event. On Wednesday for lunch, we're going to have a Thanksgiving feast, so make sure you come out to that as we also think about the things that we are thankful for this year. Also on Wednesday from 4 to 5:30 is the H3 project. It'll be meeting in the president's room, and the topic for this week is going to be how to love others in unhealthy and abusive relationships. Dessert will be provided, so you don't want to miss that. On the first day of Thanksgiving break, which will be Monday, if you are around at 5 o'clock, there is a women's basketball game at home against Bob Jones. And as always, this week is going to be off the heezy. Hello, how's it going? Welcome back to the Listen Up Podcast. I'm Ethan Partridge, your host for today. Today we have a great guest. What is your name?
I'm Michael Van Vels.
Thanks for joining us today, Michael. Really appreciate it. So Michael was rescheduled a couple times due to other things, so he is super faithful. What would you have to say about your own faithfulness?
So, I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to share all this stuff with the student body that I have to share today, and that you guys would get to know me. I appreciate being on this show here with Ethan and having a good conversation.
I'm glad to be here with you as well. So just getting right into things, how's your semester been so far?
My semester's been really busy, but it's been going well. I'm working full-time and going to school full-time. So this is the last semester, then I will graduate in December with a degree in biblical studies and a degree in technology project management.
Wow. So you said this is your last semester. What year of school is this for you?
So technically this is my 5th year.
So you're a super senior.
Yeah.
Being a super senior, what superpowers come along with that?
The superpower of saying, I remember when this would happen at Grace. Perfect example is there's somebody who works in the library, and I don't recall her name at this point, but I'd gone in there with a friend of mine, and we were telling her about how it used to be that there were lots of people who would sit around in the library and study, and there's a big part of it that I miss. Just seeing people reading books and working on papers and just the smell of books. And now you kind of walk in there to do something and it's kind of lonely.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's kind of sad.
Yeah, definitely.
That's okay. There are introverts out there who that would be a paradise for them.
True. Maybe we should advertise that a little more.
Yes, an introvert's paradise.
Yeah.
Used to be a homeschooler's paradise. So how did you originally find out about Grace?
So I actually grew up just on the other side of Burton to the north of here, on Hudson Street. So lived really close, went to college that was close. So what happened was I had applied here and then I applied at Davenport as well. So I had met with Miss Seiler, who at that point was the registrar. And I said, hey, I want a Bible degree, but I also would like a degree in technology. And that's how I found out about our dual degree program. So kind of a backstory to that, I went to the Tech Center for IT and programming and got a bunch of credits to Davenport, which is why I only have one semester left rather than a full year. So I ended up going there for my technology project management degree and here for biblical studies. So I love being here a lot more than at Davenport for a lot of different reasons, especially for the culture and the people. But I do enjoy Davenport classes just from the perspective that I get to do something I enjoy. And somewhat ironically, every class you're in, you have to write an ethics paper. It's not very hard to write an ethics paper when you've had a significant number of Bible classes. You just say, this is what the Bible says, without saying, this is what the Bible says.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
it makes you sound super wise. Like, where is he getting all these proverbs from and moral stuff?
Basically, yeah.
So, what would you say is the biggest cultural difference between Grace and Davenport?
I would say that the biggest cultural difference is at Grace, you have people who are in friend groups where you have a lot of diversity among what they're studying. You know, you might have somebody in business, might have somebody in worship arts, might have somebody in social work or psychology. At Davenport, it is very, very much like, oh, you're in IT. Oh, well, you're gonna stay with the IT people. You're in nursing. You're with the nursing people. I will be completely honest. In all of the classes I've had there, um, I've only ever been with IT people.
Wow.
And that's kind of saying something, not just because of the degree I'm in, but because of the fact that I've never even met somebody who's a business major.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Do you like associating yourself with IT people?
I guess part of that is there are different IT subcultures. So there's some people who are very much like technology is their life and that's their existence. And that's not really me. I like getting out and doing other things. So it kind of allows you to diversify your portfolio per se, where, you know, I'm not somebody who's going to say like, oh, you know what, I only play video games on the computer and that's my hobby. No, definitely not.
So taking that differentiation of like technology subcultures, how does that play into the degree you wanted to go in to with technology project management?
So the biggest thing for me is I enjoy the management side of technology. Back in high school, when I was at the tech center, I actually managed a couple of different projects, and I really, really enjoyed it. Admittedly, I was probably one of the least skilled ones in regards to programming, but by being able to direct the individuals who were really good at programming, it was very effective, and I enjoyed it. And my teacher in that class, who was actually a professor at Davenport, said to me, "Hey, you should really consider going into this." And so that's how I ended up doing it.
Wow. So how do you see yourself using the degree after you graduate?
So the biggest thing is I want to go into the mission field, which is why I wanted the biblical studies degree. In most mission organizations, there is a lack of professionally trained IT people. There's a guy who I know, and he works on the IT staff of Ethnos 360. He said out of the about 60 people on their team overall around the world, about 3 of them have a degree in IT. He is one of the ones who does not. He's in web development. So it's one of those things where you want effective technology use, and so you need to find people with degrees in it, and most people with a degree in it would rather go into the private sector where they can make significantly more money.
So how does technology use play into missions?
So every mission organization needs technology, regardless of whether it's just their website or their servers, or you have to connect with missionaries that are in the middle of nowhere, get them internet, get them whatever means of communication they need. It's one of those things where not a lot of people think about it as one of the things behind the scenes, but it's just as important. It's just as important, if not more so, than having somebody in like the accounting division. Just because you need to make sure you have that connection with those missionaries at all times, and at the same time help them do effective ministry overseas.
So is this something that you've always had a passion for, or when did you discover it?
So I've had this passion for a long time. I would say probably freshman or sophomore year of high school, I really began to become passionate about missions. Over the years, that's become more and less, as circumstances have changed. But in the past couple of years, that passion has really reinvigorated itself. And I am sure that that's what the Lord has called me to do.
That's amazing. So what do you think reinvigorated it for you?
So about a year and a half ago, I met a guy who He actually used to work at the School of Mission Aviation Technology up in Ionia. And him and a good friend of mine were coworkers. And he was going onto the mission field with a organization called MAF. And so I had met him and I said, hey, this is kind of what I want to do. I want to go, into IT on the mission field. And he's like, wow, you know what? The mission organization I'm going with really needs people in that capacity. And it really set forth sort of my understanding that, yeah, this is what the Lord has called me into. And I'm not saying right that moment the Lord laid out an opportunity, but as of right now, that's the main mission organization I'm talking to. And it's just one of those weird opportunity things where me having this conversation with this one guy has led to a bunch of different things that have happened in my life.
Wow. So do you have an ideal country or location that you would like to do missions in, that kind of missions work?
Personally, I would like to either go somewhere in Africa or South America. Ideally, and this is obviously, I say that, but whether the Lord's going to do it or not, I don't know. MAF has a base in Guatemala. Ideally, that's where I'd like to go for a few different reasons. First, it's time zone wise, not a couple hours behind us, so that's not bad. It's also cheaper to fly there and back, which means mission trips, seeing family and friends could still occur. The other reason is it's right next to Belize, where Matt DeYoung lives. So shout out to Matt DeYoung. He's a great professor. And so yeah, it's one of those things where if anything were to happen, we could just go over to Belize and we'd be perfectly safe. Where countries in Southeast Asia and things like that, a little more dangerous. So I'm just kind of thinking through things like that too.
So other than being a student here at Grace and having, those incredible dreams that you have and those goals that you want to go towards, you are also part of the IT department here. So what does your role look like in the IT department?
So my role in the IT department, to kind of answer the question most people have, yes, I am full-time staff. It's kind of a weird thing being full-time staff and a full-time student, but I'm kind of like the first contact for most things. Not everything, but a lot of things. And then I basically distribute that to whoever it needs to go to. So that's a big part of it. The other part of it is I do a lot of project coordinating, considering that's what my degree is in. It's one of those things where I need to make sure contacting the people I need to contact and planning things out with them is done. So that's the large majority of my job. Lately, one of the things that I've been working on is we've been kind of fixing the digit signs around here. So above the business office, you guys will see that it displays different things. Same thing in the jack in front of the academic office. So I've been working on that, been getting all that working how it should be. So yeah, it's just I enjoy my job. I enjoy being here with the Grace family and getting to know the other staff and faculty and students. It's quite fun for me.
That's cool. What is the most common request that you get or help desk request you get as an IT person?
The most common request that I get is probably password resets. And usually it's on our online students. I would say for on campus, though, it's usually this network thing isn't working or they can't print. So that's generally probably the top 3 that I have.
What is your favorite thing to fix?
Ooh, favorite thing. Personally, I enjoy it when somebody has a problem with their Mac, just because it's something that I have a good amount of training in regards to Macs, but because not very many people on campus have them, students or professors, it's one of these things where when there is a problem, I get to actually figure out why the problem exists and what's going on in the background. I will admit, as much as some of the students kind of get a little bit frustrated with Dr. Sam regarding his IT skills, I love helping him. I mean, it's one of my favorite things because he's so teachable and he's on a Mac and we get to learn it together. And I get to build that relationship with him. And so now he always comes to me for help, which I greatly appreciate.
That's really awesome. So before you became a college student and before you became this techno wizard that you now are, an overlord of Grace IT, just kidding, understudy to the overlord. Whoever that overlord is, you decide.
Well, Dave Gradanis would say, I'm a detective. I don't know. I don't know how the whole I know kind of how the whole ranking system works because he's explained it to me, but that's what he says I am.
You're a detective.
A tech detective. So.
Detective.
Yeah, I guess that works.
So before any of that, you presumably had a childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that. What was it like growing up?
So, as I said, I grew up on the other side of Burton. It's very different dynamic, when you're living, less than a mile from downtown Grand Rapids and everything. But I think the nicest thing for me is like I got to experience a whole bunch of different cultures at once. Where we lived, we had some apartment complexes right next to us, and then down the street there was some questionable activities going on. So kind of got to experience it all, but it's one of those things where when people, whether they're at my church or whether they're on campus or something, kind of make a statement where it's like, yeah, you need to experience a little bit more cultural diversity. I can kind of say, you really need to examine this a little more. So I grew up there my whole life. It wasn't until I was almost 19 where we moved. I didn't really want to, admittedly. I like being close to Grace. I like being in the city and around people, and everything's close and convenient. So, yeah, it's one of those things where, it's part of the reason I like going to Grace is because you're right in the city and everything's nice and close and you get to see it all.
So, from your childhood, are there any memories that stick out or that you think about today?
Wow, that's a tough question because I have a lot of those, in fact. One of my favorite memories is my dad used to own a lawn care and snowplowing business. So it was once, and I must have been about 10 years old or so. It was a really bad winter, so he had bought a second plow truck, and it had a new engine in it, a Chevy small block. It was straight piped, and he picked me up before he was going to go plow at our church, which took him usually about 2-3 hours because of how big it was. And he let me ride with him and operate the plow and stuff. And that's one of my favorite memories with my dad. And I miss being able to do that because that's obviously a long time. But yeah, that's one of the favorite memories I have of my childhood.
Do you have a close relationship with your family?
Yeah, I'm really close with my family. Obviously, my brother goes here. He's a freshman. If you see a guy who kind of looks like me, who's 6'5", that's my brother. But yeah, I'm really close to them. I moved out for a while, then I'm back at home, and then sometime in the next few months I'll be moving out again, getting my own place, which I look forward to. But yeah, I am really close to them. We do a lot together. I would say undoubtedly my siblings are my best friends. It's they can be difficult, as all siblings can, but we have a lot of good memories together. I remember one time with my brother, we went to the beach with some friends of ours, and one of our friends had brought a Frisbee. And so he told me, hey, when they're in the water, I'm going to act like I buried it, and you hide it under your beach chair. So I did that, and they spent half an hour looking for it. So things like that, it's fun to team up on, and fun to do things like that. But yeah, definitely a close-knit relationship there.
Hmm. So, along with those memories from your childhood, do you remember when you first came to Christ?
I do, yeah. Yep.
Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So there was this lady at our church, and she was actually our janitor, and she ran our Sunday school class. And I was about 5 or 6 at this point. And so she shared the gospel message and asked if anyone was interested in coming to Christ. And so I raised my hand and said yes. And she brought me into the other room and shared the gospel with me and explained, you're a sinner, so you need Christ, and led me to the Lord. So it's one of those stories where when I see her now, we still talk about it. It's still a very impactful thing to remember for me because I can remember when it happened, where it happened, who I was with. So yeah, yep.
So, Michael, since you came to Christ at a young age and then you grew up with that in your life, what was that like going into your teenage years and into high school?
So my family has a big focus on because you're a follower of Christ, you should be serving Him. So when I got into junior high, my mom said, "Hey, you need to be serving in some capacity in the church." So I, through the years, have had many different roles. We used to have a puppets ministry, which I did in 7th grade. Didn't enjoy it. Wouldn't do it again.
It's not your career path.
No, definitely not. But just different areas that I served in. There was one point in which I was youth the youth group worship leader and coordinator for all that, and that was a good time. It's kind of an interesting story about how we kind of brought everybody together and ended up having a group of like 8, which is quite surprising.
Wow.
In recent years, I've been on the worship team, which I'm still on. I'm pretty heavily involved in our youth ministry. I've been on the AV team, not surprisingly. I kind of gave that up because people were like, "Hey, can you do this?" And I'm like, "Well, not really without permission. So ask such and such." And then they would be like, "Oh, but you know how?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So it kind of became a little bit of a conflict of interest. And so I'm like, "Yeah, I probably should just back down a little bit because people know I have a little bit too much wisdom on the subject to be safe." So, yeah, but I really enjoy what I do now. Play bass on the worship team,
Nice.
so that's always good. I get to play with Andy Barabo, so it's kind of one of those things. We've been playing together for like 6 or 7 years now, so a lot of the things he does, I know exactly what he's going to do. I can kind of think about, okay, this is what he's going to do next, expect it to happen. We also do youth ministry together, so it really is helpful to have good communication, coordination on all that, and be able to serve together and show Christ to a bunch of junior hires and everywhere we can.
That's really awesome that your parents instilled in you this necessity to serve as a member of the body of Christ. I think that's huge. And I think more people nowadays don't have experience doing that. So going into college, they may not necessarily know where to get plugged in or a local church that they're a part of. So that's amazing that you had that at that young age. So since that was in junior high, then kind of going into like high school years and that, what was a challenging moment during your teenage years?
The biggest challenge during my teenage years, I would say, was probably actually freshman year of college. So at that point, my mom actually had cancer. So kind of the story behind that is I was working at a camp down in Tennessee, and I had gotten a call, and this is, I would say, beginning of July. So probably about the week after July 4th, and found out that she might have cancer. And so come back a couple weeks later and confirm, yeah, that's true. So, a lot of people ask me like, "Oh, why didn't you know very many people freshman year of college?" And it's kind of like, well, my existence became going to college, going to work, going home and dealing with different stuff, cooking maybe, because at that point my siblings are like 12 and 14, which is weird to think about now, and then doing homework until who knows when and just doing it all over again. So by the time second semester came along, I was pretty worn out and kind of just had to chill a little bit. But that was definitely the Lord teaching me to trust Him. It's kind of one of those things where you can't let the fear control you. You need to understand that there is a plan and a purpose in all of this, which was hard at that time. But now I realize how much impact it truly had on my life.
That's amazing. So out of that, is there a word of encouragement that you could give to students or those who may be currently going through a situation like that?
So I would say for students, staff, whoever is going to watch this who may end up struggling with that at some point or is now, I would say the biggest thing is first, you need to lean on the Lord. But the second thing is you need to allow other people into your life to help build you up and encourage you. Just as there are people who are going to be leaning on you for help, you need to lean on other people who are your siblings in Christ and allow them to help you and help you grow and help you through times that are hard.
That's good. What's the biggest difference between high school Michael or like teenage years Michael and Michael now, Techno Wizard Michael?
So I would say that the biggest difference now is I'm a lot more chill than I used to be in high school. To say the least, when I was in high school, I was not a very happy individual. I was very serious, very to the point, very blunt in ways I shouldn't have been, and not as kind or loving. As my family would say, I was a truth-only person and didn't show much grace, which has significantly changed in the last few years.
Why do you think that was an important switch for you?
Because just like Christ, you need to have a balance of both truth and grace. If you have one or the other, if you have too much truth, like the Pharisees, you end up not being loving or caring towards other people. And if you have too much grace, you allow, just as you see in 1 Corinthians, allowing grace to abound over the sin that's occurring and not having any correction.
So during the period between high school and now, you grew a lot, you changed a lot, God changed you a lot, you grew in your faith as well. But alongside that, did you have some people who came alongside you who helped you grow?
Yeah, I've had a good number of people who have really been impactful in my life. I would say over the past couple years, especially, our student ministries and young adults pastor has been very influential. He has encouraged me and he's had to say some hard things to me about you need to straighten up with this, which has definitely helped me grow. But at the same time, he keeps reminding me that the Lord needs to be my focus, but also at the same time that my heart needs to be in the right place in order for that to occur. So I would say that lately has been the biggest mentorship sort of influence in my life.
That's awesome. And it's good to have that mentorship and that influence when you're transitioning out of a situation in your life. Like right now, you're almost on your way out of college. So speaking of that, what are you most excited for coming out of college?
Honestly, the most exciting thing coming out of college, I think, is the fact that I won't have to be up until 2 a.m. doing homework. I look forward to being able to just go home and, it be 5 or 6 o'clock and make dinner and then read a book or, for once play video games and actually complete one in less than a year and a half. So I just look forward to sort of the stability of all of that.
That's good. So our last thing here is a truth bomb. What is a truth bomb that Grace students need to hear today?
So I'd say the biggest thing that Grace students need to hear today is that, just get to know different people, welcome different people. I know there's some friend groups on campus, and it's kind of like, oh, we're on campus, you're not. We need to make sure we're including everybody, getting to know all sorts of different people. And we got to remember that maybe there's a certain degree to which you're not getting to know those people because they don't feel welcome. If we have that attitude here at Grace, then that means when you get into the world and need to share the gospel, you're going to be more prepared to do so.
That's great. Well, thank you, Michael, for being a part of Listen Up Podcast today. And we will see you next time. And as always, listen up. Thank you for listening. If you would like to be a part of our live audience, recordings take place Mondays at 1:30 p.m. in the Quiet Room. If you would like to be a guest on our show, send us an email at listenup@gracechristian.edu. See you next week on the Listen Up Podcast.